Most Americans think they have a clear idea of what it means to feel rich, yet almost everyone quietly senses that the number keeps drifting further out of reach. Think about this for a second. You can earn more than you ever have, pay more than you ever have, and still feel like you are standing in the same place. This is the paradox that shapes the modern American financial mindset. People imagine wealth as a number, a target, a finish line, but the moment they get close, the target moves. You have probably felt this too. Maybe you once dreamed of earning six figures and believed it would fix everything. Then you hit that income and discovered nothing really changed. A bigger paycheck came with bigger expectations, and suddenly the definition of rich shifted again. And here is the part most people never notice. Feeling rich has less to do with the amount you earn and far more to do with the emotional space between what you have and what you believe you need. That emotional space keeps expanding, and it convinces many Americans that they are falling behind, even when the numbers say they are ahead. And this is where the real story begins. Everything you think you know about being rich is about to be challenged in the next section. Everyday life in the United States now feels like a quiet financial tug of war, a constant push between what people earn and what everything costs. You walk into a grocery store for a few basic items and leave wondering how a simple trip turned into a bill that bites at your paycheck. You fill your gas tank and feel the sting before the pump even clicks. You look at housing prices and wonder how anyone is supposed to build a stable future when rent alone can swallow nearly half a paycheck. This is not a personal failure. This is the financial environment Americans are living in. Wages rise in small, careful steps, while core costs sprint ahead, pulling the ground from under families who are doing everything right. A typical worker brings home just over $3,000 a month after taxes, yet a typical rent payment can easily take more than $2,000 of it. That leaves a thin strip of money to cover food, utilities, transportation, insurance, medical needs, and every unexpected shock that life throws into the mix. No wonder so many households feel like they are holding their breath every month. You've probably felt this pressure too, the feeling that one unexpected bill can ruin the whole plan. Housing alone has reshaped entire cities. People move to escape high costs, only to discover that the cheaper towns become expensive the moment new residents arrive. Food is no relief either, since even basic grocery trips now feel like shrinking bags and growing prices. Add rising interest rates that make home buying harder, car loans heavier, and credit card balances more painful, and it becomes clear why financial comfort feels so distant. When debt grows faster than savings, people stop planning for the future and start reacting to survival. More than half of Americans admit they cannot cover a $1,000 emergency without borrowing. Many save money only to pull it right back out for unexpected expenses. It is a cycle that makes long-term goals feel impossible. Retirement becomes a distant concept. Emergency savings feel out of reach. Even middle-aged workers with steady careers find themselves anxious about security. And here is what most Americans completely overlook. This constant pressure does not just drain bank accounts, it drains confidence. When your financial life is unpredictable, everything else feels unpredictable. People begin to doubt their ability to ever feel stable, regardless of their income. And this is the hidden force shaping the entire conversation. Before we can talk about feeling rich, we need to understand why Americans rarely feel financially safe to begin with. Everything in the next section builds on this deeper truth. Most people think the path to feeling rich is simple. Earn more money, save more money, and eventually the numbers will line up in a way that finally brings peace. But if that were true, high-income earners would feel rich all the time, and we know that is not how it works. You have probably met people who make 2 or 3 times the national average, yet still feel stressed, still feel behind, still feel unsure if they are doing enough. Wealth in America is not just about dollars. It is about psychology, expectations, lifestyle design, and the way people experience money in a constantly shifting environment, where content, wealth, and well-being are not conflated. Most Americans confuse income with wealth, but the two function very differently. Income is motion, net worth is direction. Income comes and goes, rising and falling with jobs, industries, health, and opportunities. Net worth grows slowly and quietly in the background, shaped by habits, savings, investments, and time. This is why someone earning modest wages for 20 years can build more wealth than someone with a high salary who spends every dollar the moment it arrives. Income is the faucet, net worth is the container. If the container has holes from lifestyle inflation, debt, impulsive spending, or poor planning, it does not matter how strong the faucet is. Many Americans are living with wide open holes, rising rent, high debt payments, inflated expectations, and social pressure to look successful all drain financial stability. Even top earners feel the pull. They buy bigger homes because everyone around them does. They drive nicer cars because coworkers do. They say yes to monthly payments because they believe they can handle it. Eventually, their income becomes a measurement of lifestyle instead of a tool for building freedom. True wealth is not created by earning more, it is created by needing less. The space between income and lifestyle is where real wealth begins. But Americans constantly evaluate their wealth relative to other people, not their own goals. Social media accelerates this by showing curated success, creating the illusion that everyone else is doing better. Someone sees a classmate in the Maldives and assumes that is wealth. Someone sees a neighbor in a luxury car and assumes the same. But these snapshots reveal consumption, not stability. Rich means high income. Wealthy means strong net worth. A high earner with no savings is rich but not wealthy. Meanwhile, an average earner who invests consistently and avoids lifestyle creep can quietly become wealthy over time. Families in the top 10% of net worth rarely look flashy. They look ordinary. They drive practical cars, live in comfortable but not oversized homes, save regularly, avoid unnecessary debt, and understand that investing is about time in the market. Wealth grows slowly at first and then accelerates, but the deeper insight is this: the definition of rich keeps shifting upward as life becomes more expensive. What once felt like wealth now feels like maintenance. Expectations rise faster than reality, creating the sense that financial comfort is always just out of reach. Feeling rich is not a number. It is a ratio, the relationship between what you have and what you believe you need. If your needs outgrow your income, you will feel poor no matter how much you earn. If your income outgrows your needs, you will feel rich even at modest levels. This ratio explains why some high earners live paycheck to paycheck and why some average earners feel stable. It explains why financial comfort feels like a moving finish line. The deeper struggle is not numbers alone, but expectations shaped by culture, marketing, and comparison. Many households do not feel secure because they lack a foundation of savings. Without that foundation, every emergency becomes a crisis. Even good incomes struggle to build savings because costs rise faster than pay. Housing, food, healthcare, and debt consume most of take-home pay. When essentials reach 70 to 80% of income, the gap needed for saving and investing becomes razor thin. This gap is the difference between drifting and advancing. When it exists, wealth grows. When it disappears, people feel stuck regardless of effort. Another overlooked truth is that Americans often use emotional budgeting instead of mathematical budgeting. They make decisions based on how money feels rather than what money is doing. A bonus feels like permission to spend. A tax refund feels like extra money. A raise feels like an invitation to upgrade lifestyle. Emotional decisions override the steady logic required for long-term wealth. Wealth grows in stillness, in what you choose not to spend, in savings that stay untouched, in investments that compound quietly for years. Wealth is less about speed and more about consistency. It is not about hitting a single high-income year. It is about creating a predictable gap between income and expenses and letting time do the heavy lifting. Most Americans underestimate what consistent small contributions can become over 10 or 20 years. They overestimate what a sudden windfall would solve. They imagine wealth as a moment of arrival instead of a slow accumulation of steady choices. Now that the foundation is clear, we can move into the next part, the human side of the story, where these ideas show up in real American lives. Let me tell you a story that might feel uncomfortably familiar, because versions of it are happening in millions of households across the country right now. Picture a couple in their late 30s named Mark and Elena. They are not reckless people. They are not careless with money. They work hard, they earn respectable salaries, and on paper their income places them well above the national median. If you met them, you might even assume they are doing great. But underneath the surface, their financial lives tell a different story, one that quietly mirrors the emotional and economic pressures so many Americans carry. Mark works in tech and brings home a solid paycheck. Elena works in healthcare and earns reliably as well. Together, they earn around $180,000 a year, a number that looks impressive until it meets the reality of modern American costs. Their take-home pay after taxes is closer to $120,000. Then, real life begins. Their rent absorbs more than $3,000 every month, not because they want luxury, but because that is simply the price of a modest apartment in their city. Their student loans take another $1,000 combined. Childcare, an unavoidable necessity, eats up nearly $2,000. After groceries, utilities, transportation, insurance, and the scattered costs of raising a family, their financial margin shrinks to almost nothing. They do not feel poor and they do not feel rich. They simply feel squeezed. From the outside, their life looks like success. Good jobs, healthy kids, a safe neighborhood, vacations once or twice a year. But emotionally, they live in a constant state of low-level financial alertness. Every time the car makes a strange noise, they worry. Every time a medical bill arrives, they pause before opening it. Every time they check the balance of their emergency fund, they remind themselves not to think too far ahead, because the future feels fragile. And this is where the gap between income and emotional wealth becomes clear. Mark knows coworkers who earn similar salaries but seem far more relaxed. Elena sees friends who appear to be thriving financially, posting photos from trips, renovations, concerts, and nights out. They compare themselves quietly and wonder what they are doing wrong. But here is the truth most people never say out loud. Those friends are often in the same situation, maybe even worse. Some are living on credit cards. Some are paying minimum balances on loans. Some have no emergency fund at all. Some rely on financial help from parents but never talk about it. The illusion of wealth is powerful because it hides the financial stress behind curated moments, and it convinces people like Mark and Elena that they are the only ones struggling, when in reality, the struggle is widely shared. One night after putting their kids to bed, the couple sat at their small kitchen table with their laptops open, trying to figure out where their money was going. They were frustrated. They felt trapped. They felt like they were working harder every year, yet standing still. Elena finally asked the question that many Americans ask quietly at night. How much money do we actually need to feel comfortable? Not rich, not extravagant, just comfortable. The number she wrote down was $250,000 a year, a number she had seen in a news headline about what Americans say they need to feel financially secure. Mark wrote down $300,000, not because he wanted a mansion or luxury car, but because he wanted breathing room. He wanted to stop worrying about every bill. He wanted to save without fear of unexpected expenses wiping out their progress. Here is the twist. If they ever reached that income, their expectations might rise again. A larger home, a better school district, a slightly nicer car, a little more convenience. Lifestyle tends to expand slowly and invisibly, and before long the feeling of comfort fades. This cycle explains why so many Americans, even high earners, fail to feel wealthy. Their income grows, but their lifestyle grows faster. The emotional gap widens with every upgrade. Meanwhile, another story plays out. Just a few miles away, a man named Daniel earns far less than Mark and Elena. His salary is modest and his apartment is small. But Daniel made a decision early in life that changed everything. He kept his expenses low. He avoided lifestyle creep. He invested small amounts consistently for 15 years. He built an emergency fund that he rarely touches. He drives an older car with no payment and shops intentionally. He tracks his spending, not to limit joy, but to protect stability. Daniel does not earn more than the average American, yet he feels calm about money. He feels secure. He feels quietly wealthy, not because he has millions, but because his financial life is predictable. He knows his future will be okay because his habits compound even when his income does not. And this is the emotional contrast that defines modern American wealth. Two families, two different incomes, two very different experiences. One feels squeezed despite earning more. The other feels stable despite earning less. The difference is not effort. It is not intelligence. It is not luck. It is the ratio between lifestyle and income, the gap that determines whether people feel freedom or stress. This is the part most Americans never fully understand. Feeling rich is not about crossing a certain threshold of earnings. It is about shrinking the financial pressure that follows you through everyday life. It is about creating a buffer between your money and your fears. It is about making choices today that protect your peace tomorrow. The emotional truth is simple. People feel poor when their life is unpredictable. People feel wealthy when their life is stable. And this stability does not come from high income alone. It comes from habits, discipline, expectations, and the quiet courage to resist expanding lifestyle at the same pace as earnings. Everything in this story leads to the next part, where the lessons hidden inside these experiences become the roadmap for what actually works in the real world. The deeper principles that help people move from stressed to stable and eventually to genuinely wealthy start unfolding in the next section. There are a few core principles that quietly determine whether someone eventually feels wealthy or whether they spend their entire lives chasing a moving target. These are not tricks or shortcuts. They are mindsets and behaviors that reshape the way money flows, grows, and supports a stable life. They appear simple on the surface, but when practiced consistently, they create powerful long-term transformation, and they work for people at every income level because they focus on control, clarity, and intention instead of chasing a perfect number. Most Americans try to solve financial stress by increasing income, but the families who eventually feel wealthy do something different. They strengthen the gap between what they earn and what they need. This single shift creates breathing room, stability, and a sense of progress that income alone cannot deliver. Principle 1, protect the gap. The first principle is the most important and the most misunderstood. Feeling wealthy begins the moment your income consistently exceeds your lifestyle, not by a huge amount, not by some magical percentage, but by enough to create a predictable surplus. This surplus is freedom. It is future stability. It is the seed of wealth. Every unexpected bill feels like a crisis when this gap disappears, but when you rebuild the gap, everything becomes lighter. Protecting this gap means resisting lifestyle creep even when promotions come, raises arrive, or income spikes. People who eventually feel wealthy treat increases in income as an opportunity to widen the gap, not inflate the lifestyle. This single mindset shift builds more wealth over time than almost any investment strategy. Principle 2, build stability first. Many households jump straight to investing, retirement planning, or big financial goals, but people who eventually feel wealthy do something different. They build stability before strategy. Stability means emergency savings. It means manageable debt. It means predictable monthly costs. Without stability, every plan collapses the moment life throws a surprise. Without stability, savings drain faster than they grow. Without stability, investing becomes inconsistent and stressful. Building stability is not glamorous. It is not exciting. It often requires patience and discipline. But once stability exists, wealth building becomes easier, calmer, and more rewarding. Stability is the guardrail that keeps progress on track. Stability feels like wealth long before wealth arrives. Principle 3, master the flow of money. Think about how money moves through your life. For many people, it hits their account, flows through bills, spending, debt, and small purchases, then disappears entirely. People who feel wealthy treat money like a flow that needs structure. They automate saving before spending. They give every dollar a purpose. They track, not to restrict, but to understand. They separate needs from habits. They reduce mindless expenses that do not add value. They become aware of emotional triggers that lead to spending, stress, reward, boredom, and comparison spending. Mastering flow is not about deprivation. It is about intention. It is about saying yes to joy and no to autopilot. When money flows deliberately, savings grow naturally. Investments become consistent, progress becomes visible, confidence grows. Principle 4, understand the difference between growth and appearance. One of the biggest reasons Americans fail to feel wealthy is because they confuse looking successful with becoming successful. Social pressure creates a powerful illusion. People feel obligated to upgrade cars, homes, wardrobes, and experiences not because these things increase happiness, but because they signal status. But these upgrades often drain future wealth. People who eventually feel wealthy understand that success is quiet. It lives in accounts, habits, and choices. They choose growth over appearance. They choose security over display. They choose long-term peace over short-term prestige. Families who look the richest are often the most financially fragile. Families who look ordinary are often the most financially stable. The more someone focuses on invisible progress, the stronger their financial life becomes. Principle 5, make time an ally instead of an enemy. Many Americans believe that wealth comes from big leaps, a promotion, a business win, a major raise, a lucky investment. These moments do happen, but they are rare. Real wealth comes from time, from consistent contributions, from compounding, from the quiet discipline of doing the right thing repeatedly, even when it feels slow. Someone who invests consistently for 15 years often outperforms someone who tries to time the market for 15 months. Time is the great multiplier, but it only works when the gap exists and stability protects it. Procrastination steals the one resource money needs most. Small steps done early outperform big steps done late. The path becomes clearer, stress becomes lighter, the future becomes more predictable. The sense of wealth begins long before the numbers look impressive. These principles reveal a powerful truth. Wealth is less about the size of your paycheck and more about the shape of your financial life. It is less about how much money you earn and more about how your money behaves. It is less about hitting a number and more about building a system that grows quietly in the background. Everything you need to feel wealthy already exists within these principles. What remains is understanding the deeper philosophy behind money itself, the emotional mindset that transforms these principles into a lived experience. That part unfolds in the next section. At some point in every financial journey, people realize that money is not just math. It is emotion, memory, identity, fear, hope, and the story we tell ourselves about what life should feel like. This is why two people with the same income can have completely different experiences. One feels secure, one feels overwhelmed. One sees possibility, one sees limitation. The difference is not numerical, it is philosophical. So let us explore the deeper mindset that shapes how Americans experience wealth, because this inner shift is often the point where the feeling of being rich finally becomes possible. Think about how you relate to money. For many Americans, money represents safety. The childhood memories of bills on the counter, arguments about expenses, or months when the budget ran tight stay quietly in the background long into adulthood. Even when income rises, the old fear lingers. Others see money as opportunity, a way to create experiences, build freedom, or take care of the people they love. Some see money as a scorecard, some see it as a burden. Some see it as something they will never fully understand. These beliefs shape every financial decision long before the numbers do. The philosophy of feeling rich begins when money becomes a tool instead of a threat, when it becomes a partner instead of an adversary, when it becomes a resource designed to support life rather than dominate it. People who feel wealthy are not necessarily the ones with the largest accounts. They are the ones who have learned to view money with calm awareness. They understand that money amplifies who you already are. If you are stressed, it gives you more ways to stress. If you are grounded, it gives you more ways to build. This is why so many high earners still feel anxious. Their mindset never shifted. Their earnings outgrew their fears, but their fears never outgrew their earnings. Feeling rich is ultimately about stability, not extravagance. It is about waking up and knowing that one surprise will not erase your progress. It is about trusting that your habits will carry you forward even in uncertain times. It is about having a sense of control over the future, even when the economic landscape around you feels unpredictable. Wealth as a philosophy is the confidence that you can meet your obligations, support your goals, and protect your peace without constant worry. Most Americans spend years chasing higher income when what they truly crave is this stability. Other part of the philosophy is learning to measure progress by direction, not comparison. Americans are surrounded by images of curated lifestyles, dramatic success stories, and surface-level indicators of wealth. These comparisons drain emotional energy. They create unrealistic expectations. They distort the meaning of success. But people who feel wealthy build a different habit. They compare their current self to their past self. They look at their growth over months and years instead of looking sideways at others. They focus on the strength of their systems rather than the shine of someone else's purchases. This shift transforms money from a competitive race into a personal journey. It removes pressure and increases clarity. There is also a profound emotional truth at the center of wealth. People feel wealthy when they feel free. Free to make choices, free to spend time with the people they love, free to decline opportunities that do not align with their values, free to say no to unhealthy environments, free to design a life that does not depend on constant hustle or fear. This freedom does not require extreme riches. It requires intentional structure and stable habits. Americans who embrace this philosophy build lives where money supports meaning rather than replacing it. They understand that time is the ultimate currency and that wealth enhances its quality when managed properly. Finally, the philosophy of feeling rich includes a sense of patience. Wealth is a long game. It rewards those who understand delayed gratification and punishes those who seek rapid transformation. It grows for people who make small but meaningful decisions repeatedly. It expands for those who are willing to endure slow progress without losing faith. When Americans adopt this mindset, they stop feeling behind, they stop chasing dramatic leaps, they start appreciating the steady, quiet wins. Eventually, they look around and realize they feel wealthy not because they crossed a certain number, but because their life feels grounded, supported, and aligned. This is the emotional climax of the journey. Feeling rich is not an amount. It is an experience shaped by stability, intention, and inner calm. And now that the philosophy is clear, one final step remains: the closing message that ties everything together and helps viewers decide what they want to do with this understanding. The last section brings it home. If you are committed to leveling up your financial life, remember that feeling rich begins long before the numbers look impressive. It begins the moment you create stability, protect your gap, and build habits that support your future instead of draining it. Think about what we uncovered together. Wealth is less about income and more about intention. It is less about comparison and more about direction. It is less about reaching a perfect number and more about designing a life that feels calm and supported. If this message resonates with you, comment, "I am leveling up," so we can keep